Welcome to Truth Proof, everyone. And as you can see, we've got Les and we've got Dr. Martin Abbas. And I'm thrilled to be speaking to you, Martin, tonight. And Les, have you had a good week?
Yeah, I've not been so bad, Paul. Yeah, all good, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, for those that don't know, Martin's been on Truth Proof before, talked about his very open-minded approach to the subject of unexplained, very level-headed with it as well, I might add. But it's great to have Martin on board, and he's going to share his views, whether we agree or disagree tonight with what's happening in the world of the unexplained and what he thinks about it, because I've bumped into you, Martin, at conferences many times now, haven't I? So that the interest's there, but it's always been there, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Les and Paul, for having me on the show. It's always a great pleasure. And obviously everyone in the chat, hi, everybody on this side of the camera, to you all over there. Yeah, I mean, I think I said this before, if you're a kid, you love Star Wars, you love space, you love spacemen, and you're going to make Lego spacecraft, and it's just going to go with you through life. And as I've grown, I've become obviously a scientist. That's then kind of, the imagination has melded with the objectivity of the scientist to try and understand the phenomenon in a bit more detail. And just try and get some answers, really. And I think that's what we're all sort of looking for, answers about what this phenomenon might be.
Absolutely. And I'm going to do a name check in a bit, because I can see that we've got close to 100 in chat. But is there a particular part of this genre of unexplained phenomena, just throw that net wide, that you're attracted to more than others?
Well, as I mentioned on the first interview with you, obviously my first wife passed away, and obviously that led me into this kind of realm of spirituality. And as a doctor, you get a little bit of that normally, just because you're dealing with death and the lives of people that you care about. I mean, it's hard not to start caring as a doctor about your patients. So obviously the death of a partner is obviously very significant, and I'm sure there's people in the chat who may have gone through this awful experience. And in that regard, you can get solace in many ways. And the way I sort of looked at that was about what happens scientifically after we pass away. So there was a little bit about spirituality, the after death sort of experience that people have, and there's certainly evidence about that. We can look at that if you'd like to.
Yeah,
and then obviously that then takes you through the genre of the remote viewing, which I mentioned, and we've done a little bit of that on the last transmission. And the phenomenon seems to me to be associated with this deeper conscious mind. It touches you on a level of your senses, and I know we were thinking about maybe discussing senses and what receptors we have for that, but also at this deeper level, at the conscious level, it seems to touch you. And I don't want to pigeon myself into that kind of thing that I'm all about spirituality and consciousness, because I'm not. I'm actually more interested in spacecraft and maybe going off world. That will be wonderful. And all of the whistleblowers and all the things that they say, the Linda Moulton House stuff, that's really interesting. But do
you think though, Martin, that there's more? I think there's more to us as humans than just flesh, blood, and bone, and maybe the soul lives on. And I don't mean that we're special. It might live on for all life on Earth in some way or another. But do you think the soul lives on, and there's an intelligence to what lives on, as in spirit, ghosts, good and bad? Do you think that lives on? I know we can only speculate, because there's nobody come back to tell us, really, has there?
I think you can look at this phenomenon in a number of ways, a number of lenses. So you can look at it from this 3D reality that we're in and how it interacts with us at this level. And that would be, the drone phenomenon, whether that's real or not. It's the sub universe that you've coined, which is a really excellent term for those things under the sea. The inner Earth, paradigm that people think about and consider. And then you've got, and then the extra world or extraterrestrial phenomenon, is there interstellar travel, etc., etc. And then you have the higher level plane phenomenon, and the potentially poltergeist or ghost phenomenon and demonic or angelic, and how does that connect? And I think that connects to that higher spiritual plane and consciousness level, which I think you can't get away from, even at this 3D reality. It's all connected. And I think the phenomenon connects to us via the consciousness in many ways, and not just via our normal senses of, sight, touch, sound, etc. So yes, do I think we go on? In answer to your question, yes, I think we absolutely do. I think there's evidence, striking evidence, that we do that. There's a guy called Jeremy Long who's done I think it was 5,000 near-death experience sort of research study. And as I said to you previously, the phenomenon is very common in the sense that the near-death experience phenomenon is very common. It's very unique, but it's all very similar. And I was doing some further research about it, and there's this Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is quite interesting. It's thousands of years old. I mean, you say to me, do we think that this is something that happens, that we live on? Well, I think our ancestors thought it did and kind of knew it did. And if you look at this Tibetan Book of the Dead, they go through this with anyone who's dying in sort of the culture. And essentially they go through these thing called Bada. So Bada, essentially, when you first pass away, you get this clarity of light, it's called, essentially, where you get that light around you, and you get this understanding of the world, where your human nature is still within you, but your physical nature is gone, and you kind of get this understanding about what is the meaning of everything, because the physical world doesn't really mean anything to you anymore. It's sort of been past you, and you're moving ahead. And then you've got the second Bada and the third Bada. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, can I just come in there? So basically, are you saying we have lived multiple lives then, Martin?
Well,
is that where we're going with it?
Let me just move this forward because I think it's rating on the radiator. The Tibetan Book of the Dead certainly says that. Yeah. So the third Bada, well, I'll do the second one first. So the second one is then where you meet essentially all the neuroses, essentially. Let's call it the neuroses, the anger, the phenomenon, the parts of your psyche that exist. So, if you're an angry individual, you might see a demonic, angry individual sort of judging you, kind of thing. Carl Jung is a psychiatrist that kind of looked at this as well and kind of echoed that phenomenon. And it's interesting how a lot of different specialties come at it from different angles, but they all come out with a similar solution, in the sense that you have this after death analysis component where you've then gone through the white tunnel, whatever it might be. And then you sort of discuss or review your life and what you've done, and that review can be done by yourself essentially, or via these parts of your psyche that judge you, and you have to then accept yourself. The Buddhist teaching would be that you accept yourself for who you are, all the good bits, the bad bits, and then you can and become more enlightened and get better. And then the third Bada would be you then get offered the chance to return and improve again. Now there is a little bit of limited choice here, it appears, that you get a choice of certain lives, as it were, certain doors, but it's not sort of everyone can come back and being super rich and a billionaire. These are directed by you to some extent, but also by the higher consciousness or higher mind, to try and give you greater enlightenment. So that's what that Tibetan Book of the Dead seems to imply. But likewise, as I said, Jeremy Long has this very similar response for the 5,000 NDEs he looked at, where you have the light, the tunnel, this judgment component, and then this potential coming back, and this open mind where you are all-knowing, all-seeing being, when you pass away and you go through the tunnel, really made me think about this lifestyle component, this life cycle component of what we may be, a conscious being that's using this 3D reality to learn and engage ourselves and grow. And I had an interesting question from a person on one of the chats in a different show, and they said, well, why would the one conscious mind decide to split itself up? And the thought I had was, well, every being wants to learn and grow and experience. And as I said to you before, Paul, if you were an all-knowing, all-seeing being, you're not going to experience anything. You've done it. You know everything's old hat. It's going to taste like dry toast. Whereas life's exciting, the good and the bad, and it's not anything like dry toast. I mean, it can be boring. It can be, the monotony of humdrum life. But there's always something exciting in life. Even the song of birds in the morning, the qualia as they call it, that sensation, the depth of life. So I wonder if this was an example of where this conscious being has separated itself and created smaller portions of us, as it were, to experience life. That doesn't hold, though, that God isn't real and religions aren't necessarily real. I mean, I don't judge, and all things are on the table for me. But scientifically, Jeremy Long's work was very interesting to see and understand. And of course, you've got the past lives that people have experienced. The child that thought he was the US Navy pilot started writing pictures of crashes, and it turned out he was a previous pilot, got shot down in Japan. And then you've got the young lady who Martin. I've got to say that one because it's just it's my name. The kid who thought he was I think that was Jamie Leininger. He thought he was previously a film producer in the late 40s and 50s. I think.
Could it produce evidence that he was the?
Well, the thing, I mean, as Phil Cancelo would say, what are the proofs that you have experienced some scientific event or something? And Jamie Leininger gave, I think it was about 53 different examples of things he shouldn't know, which was very, very unusual. And certainly scientifically, you couldn't say that was anything but, you couldn't say it was done by chance.
Perhaps the little boy is a better example of the proof, because he was saying things that he just couldn't have known, weren't he? And So is it a journey then, Martin? Is it a journey of perfection of the soul kind of thing? Do we become in the next life what we are in this life? So if we're a little bit better.
The answer is I don't know.
I know we don't know. I'm asking questions that.
If we were to just muse on this, I think you might very well do something quite different, because I think it depends on what you needed to learn as a conscious soul, and I think this holds true for religious belief systems as well.
Les has got something he wants to ask here. I can tell. Go on, Les.
Go on, Les.
So, if then we have multiple lives and we're trying to, for want of a better phrase, I can't remember how you put it, to better ourselves, Martin. Just go with that one. Right.
Well, I think it could very well be. Yeah.
Yeah. Then why is it so few people remember, or it seems that they remember any past life to learn from a past life what they went wrong in?
Yeah. Well, I think if you, like anything, if you go into something with prejudgment and pre-knowledge, it can affect the outcome of what you're trying to do. And I wonder if whether or not that whole sort of wiping of things is so that you can actually enjoy the experience, good or bad it might be, and learn the most it might be, learn the most from it. And of course, if you bring that kind of information to this 3D reality, you might affect the outcome for other people. So I might be doing everyone a very great disservice by trying to tell everybody that this is what I think it might be. Now, there's a guy called Frédéric Fagin. Have you come across this guy? He's a physicist. Now, I saw something in the chat there about our brains aren't the focus of our conscious minds, and I absolutely agree with you there. This physicist, and he's very world renowned. He created the microchip, etc., etc. He's done a lot of stuff on AI, and realizes you can't create an artificial intelligence because there's more to the artificial intelligence. And he talks about this qualia, this whole thing about the depth of an experience of life, the taste of wine, etc. You can't teach that to a computer. It comes from you. And essentially our senses, this is where senses come in. When we see things, we don't just see electrical impulses that our eyes, for example, send to our brains, and then our brains interpret it.
Which is what a computer would do, essentially, or a machine.
Exactly. It may not be a computer in that way. You might better liken it to you playing a VR video game. And essentially our conscious mind is actually inside this kind of not like an auditorium, but kind of like an auditorium that is being manifested or created at a quantum level. And our minds actually live in this quantum field. Now, I don't want to confuse or go above what people understand by that. But essentially, if you were to think of it as looking at your life through a VR headset, and you get so engrossed in it, so you're in such a great time of it, it becomes real to you, and then hence you're learning from it. But likewise, if it's at this quantum level, and we know that the fabric of space-time, or the fabric of this reality, is all connected at this quantum level, that then made me think, well, could that be how things like remote viewing work? Could that be how we're being connected to by the phenomenon, not just through our senses, our eyes, our ears, our hearing, but could it also be connecting to us directly at this conscious level through the quantum field? And if we create our internal image, our internal picture of the world around us, not just through our eyes and things, could it manipulate us? Could it implant into us what is happening around us? So people will often hear things in their mind, and it's not via their, I didn't hear that. You were going to tell me, you were telling me about someone saying something on the phone, or in the clip.
You make a good point, and I'll just butt in there briefly, because as Les knows, and I think you do now, Martin, we're going to have someone else come on around 8 o'clock, hopefully, guys. So bear with us. And that's about a few strange things that have happened via the phone, via my phone, via someone else's phone. Well, 3 people's phones now. It'd be interesting if it happened to your phone or Les's. But we'll come to that in a bit. So I just want to get that bit in. And I'll tell you what, if you don't mind pausing for a moment, Martin, let's just have a look at the names in here, because we've got 160 people in chat. So I'm not going to get to them all. Tom Waters, Fire Spirit, Tonya Morrison, Ginge, Carol Pointer, Alienate UK, Zeno, Simon Riley, Rivington Pike. So you're doing moderating for us, Lee. Thank you. Dave Barker. Oh, Dave's got a question in caps there. Denny Appleby. We've done Tom Waters, haven't we? Oh, Alison's in. Great to see you. Stargazer Eternal. And I saw Linny in earlier, and I think Elaine will be in, and Mia Girl. Pete will be watching from afar, as you know, Martin. So all good to
I hope you're getting well, mate.
Yeah, and for the names I've missed, apologies. We might do it again in half an hour, but if not, let's just get back to it. Sorry about that, Martin and Les.
Stephen Collin, Martin, you can probably see that on the screen. Dr. Martin, do you mean you come back as you were, or as another person in the flesh, so to speak?
That's a really good question, Stephen, and thank you for it. The whole point about consciousness is supposed to be that it is not governed by space or time. So the whole thing about the remote viewing thing is that you could extend your consciousness to a different place, a different time, and it isn't sort of you can actually detect things. So if that holds true, and certainly the results you get from remote viewing might imply that it is true, your consciousness could come back at any point in space and time as anything or anyone. So it could be that I could come back as my son, for example. Now that sounds weird, but bear with me. So my conscious entity is doing this thing right now, okay? And then I pass away. And then I think to myself, well, look, I would like to know what it was like for me to look after my son. So I then come back as my son. Now that doesn't mean that there isn't a component of him that his consciousness isn't going through as well normally, but it just means that I could have come back and done something similar. So I don't think it holds that you can't have your own consciousness in 2 places at once. I know it sounds weird, but if consciousness is not governed by time and place, you can come back at any point in space and time. Okay. Now, if that means you wanted to come back with your loved ones, because I think that was another question, then yeah, absolutely you could. But the question mark then for me would be, well, if your consciousness is eternal, and this is only a 70-year lifespan or 80-year lifespan, or hopefully 90-year lifespan, why would you bother coming back here for that short period of time? Your loved ones are going to be back in wherever it is we go after this. They might just want to have a chat with you there and enjoy their time with you there. And obviously when you pass away, the near-death experience information seems to suggest that a lot of people don't want to come back. You know, although you love everyone and you know it's all excellent and wonderful, you know, being with your family, but the life that you then have later, the ongoing conscious life that you have, is actually far nicer and more open, and you realize that this is just a small shell of a being that you are, and actually you're a lot larger and a lot bigger than this reality, and your loved ones will be there with you too. So that's an interesting concept. Really, it does bend the mind a little bit. Do I think we do that? Probably we don't come back as our son or what have you. But it's something that's possible based on those postulates about remote viewing and time and space with consciousness.
Okay. Do you want to fire any questions up?
Yeah, I've got a question from Ian.
Lenny, as we know,
have you had any more weird frog experiences?
Well, no, I haven't had any more weird frog experiences.
And just for the people who don't know, Martin, do you want to just outline what happened there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ian and Linny and Paul, myself and
Jeremy, I think.
Jeremy was up there. Mick and Pete, we're all up there. Who else was there? Was Alex there? I think Alex was there.
Alex was probably up there, but you've just about covered it. And we're on the cliff tops at Benton when he says up there.
Benton, yeah. And there's a stand essentially where daylight. Yes, about what I'd say 7:30 in the summer, roughly June time. And we're all sort of sitting, you know, standing around. It's been an hour or two, and I hear this kind of weird noise, and you know, I literally went. I thought maybe someone had done a burp or something, you know. So I was like, and then I heard it again. So I was like, "Quick, everyone, shoot!" You know. And everyone was like, "What is it mine? What is it?" And Ian's like, "What is it mine?" And I was like, "Have you heard that?" And it sounded so unusual. I mean, it was
it was very repetitive, weren't it?
Yeah, it kind of went. Yeah, I didn't know if it was metallic or. I managed to video it and get sort of some of the sound off it. I don't think we've played it fully yet, have we?
We haven't. I've put it on a loop, and to be honest with you, that's a failing. I could have sent it Les today, and we could have played that, because Linny, who's there now, and like we've just said, that's his real likeness. He does look like that, but you know, he's kind of like, he hit it on Ed what it sounded like to me. And when you do it's a winter sport, curling, isn't it, with the blocks of granite, and when they knock together, it sounded like that, but on a loop, and that's what it sounded like to me. So Martin heard it first. We all heard it. It weren't somebody nowhere. Yeah, well, I think I heard it. We all heard it. But interestingly, it was over the cliffs. And bearing in mind the 200 to 300 foot cliffs where we were, I think it'd been about 300, and it's sheer. So it's over the cliffs when Martin heard it. Then it was under my feet and Jeremy's.
Crazy.
Am I right with where you heard it first, Martin? Correct me if I'm wrong.
It was to the left, which would have been off the cliff, because the stand that we were on was essentially on the edge of the cliff. So it was kind of to the left of me, and I thought, what was that? And I thought maybe Linny was playing funny games with me, you know. Because he does do a good joke, does Linny?
Yeah, he likes to laugh, doesn't he? Bless him.
It's awesome fun. And then we heard it underneath our feet, and I said, you know, what the hell is that? You know, kind of thing. And everyone then started, you know, everyone shut up basically and started listening. And then it moved through the foliage, but without moving the foliage, to the other side of the stand.
Yeah.
And then, you know, 30 seconds later, it's down the cliff again. And then 30 seconds later, not even 30 seconds, a few seconds later, it's up the hill again. And
it's over in the field. It's like, well, I wouldn't say 100. It's 50 yards away, isn't it? Because Jeremy said it's here now. And, you know, so...
It was the Usain Bolt of the phenomenon, I think. Therefore.
Yeah, it was a strange one. A really strange one. And, yeah, like I said, you're going to hear a strange one all being well at 8 o'clock. But that's just about covered it. And have we more questions, Les?
That would go along with the fact that phenomenon was playing on our real senses, that sort of auditory senses. That we could then pick up. But then there's obviously all of that implanted stuff that people hear that others don't. So you might see unusual light phenomenon that no one else sees. You know, speaking of being up on the cliff, you see those sort of little yellow kind of flashes that we all sometimes see. But then there's also these episodes where there's, you know, a whole halo of light, or on the floor, or light falling down from that sign I remember you mentioned.
And what we've revealed by slowing down the footage is huge flashes of light that have literally turned night to day, and none of us noticed it. And they're there. It can't be denied. Found another one today, because we're doing these presentations for Awakening, and I've just been doing a few bits for Ian for his. He's going to come tomorrow, and we'll put a few more bits together. And there's another one, and it's not a glitch in camera. It becomes daylight, and it's just nuts.
This is a failing of our senses, isn't it? This is a failing of our eyes to be able to detect that level of speed of light, and it's unusual because you can pretty much pick up. If you blink very quickly, you can detect an awful lot of information just from the world around you.
Yeah.
If you go into a black room and then turn the lights on, you'll be able to see and turn it off very quickly. You'll see an awful lot of stuff. So the flash of light is an exceptionally fast phenomenon. Now, whether or not that is a different wavelength of light that we can detect with our eyes, and is only detectable on the camera, is anyone's guess. I mean, that thing that Linny took a video of, that's incredible. I mean, the thing that is flying around Benton, the size of a car, pretty much. It's anti-gravitic. It defies gravity. What the hell is that? And why the hell is it, watching you and Linny?
And essentially, that's what it's doing. And I wonder. I mean, we don't know what effects it's giving off, but that interests me. I think everybody knows that this fear that suddenly drops on a person interests me, because it's clearly something, even if it's not. There's something on another level interacting with chemicals, I think, in our body to create this fear. I mean, you're the man of science, not me, but there's something that's creating this intense fear in a person, and then it just kind of evaporates. You walk through it. So I'm wondering if we're in close proximity to these things, and I don't know.
Well, you'd question whether or not the fear response. I mean, the fear response can be initiated by anything. Something we see, a lion chasing us, something we hear, the sound of the horror film. That you could turn the sound off and it's less scary, isn't it?
Yep.
Hide behind the sofa. There's the other element of could it be electromagnetic detection that we're feeling, the vibration sense that our bodies think, well, that's not normal. I'm detecting something, but subconsciously we're detecting it. And it's trying to tell our conscious minds, well, there's something wrong here. We need to worry about this. Or could it be at this quantum field level, this phenomenon, this idea that we have this kind of premonition that something is wrong? Don't go down that alleyway, not just because it's dark, but because I've got a feeling there's someone down there that wants to do me some damage. So could it be an element of that? Could it be the phenomenon putting itself into our minds at a quantum level? Could it be military tech that does that? Because there's you've got the stuff that happens in different diplomatic places, and they get this kind of fear response. You've got microwave emitters that can make you feel unwell and tingle and have heat and give you all sorts of weird responses, even hallucinations. Could it just be military tech that we're being?
Are we talking about the Havana syndrome?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, something like that. I mean, I spoke to you before about microwaves on the cliffs. Because you've got your Navy people. I don't want to say too much because it's on the
no, it's all right.
You've got the Navy outside there, and the Navy and big banks, they all sort of transmit data via microwave. I don't think they do it via sort of your telephone. They do it through encrypted channels, and sometimes that's through, if it's certainly large data dumps, it's through microwave emitters. So you then wonder whether or not, are we being bombarded by something accidentally? I don't think we do it on purpose by this, or is it from the phenomenon? Is it this car-sized orb or whatever it was emitting something that we're detecting that's making us feel fear? Something that we can't see but we can detect through our senses.
And what's brilliant about that, and I'm not going to put Les on the spot and ask him to find that bit of footage, but what's brilliant about that is without a thermal camera we wouldn't have even known that were there, and it's the tech's getting closer to the phenomena, but we're still no wiser to what it is.
Yeah, if only we had an incredible donor that could give you loads of extra cash for tech. Yeah, there we are. It's a shout out call for anyone who's interested. No, but that's the senses thing, isn't it? You know, we can be manipulated via our senses, and it can fool us into thinking it's the phenomenon. But likewise, without all of these bits of gadgetry, we wouldn't even know that these things were existing, military tech or not.
Absolutely. I think Les wanted to jump in again.
Is it really military tech that is affecting us? Could it be 4G, 5G waves, Martin?
Well, I don't know about 5G in the sense that we know, I've got some, I don't want to say, I was going to say patience, but individuals are more or less sensitive to electromagnetic waves. And there are some individuals, and I don't believe for a minute that they have a mental illness, are more or less more sensitive to certain wavelengths and frequencies of electromagnetic radiation. So I've come across individuals who live near or have been exposed to, through their work, being near electromagnetic radiation, which makes them feel ill, makes them feel unwell. And of course, everyone's on a spectrum of resilience to these kinds of things, electromagnetic radiation, or even the smell that we smell. Some people will be able to tolerate a really bad smell, and some people won't. That's just an example. But electromagnetic radiation would be one that you can't see, but would still be a noxious thing that we might not be able to tolerate. We know that if you live near power lines, for example, power stations, there's an increased risk of things like leukemia and cancers. So, yeah, I absolutely think that the electromagnetic radiation could do it. 5G, well, I mean, if you look at I don't want to say anything about a particular phone company or anything.
No, don't say it's about any phone company. It's just.
But you can certainly look at some of the documentation that we have with some of our communications devices that might show that you need to read it in a bit more detail for the health and safety warnings.
Okay, well, we'll jump from that. Have we got any questions here, Les?
Well, I'll save the questions because I know we need to get onto the stratification tool.
Okay,
guys. Yeah,
the reason I'm on.
We haven't touched on that yet. So I think probably if we want to start that one, Paul.
Well, I'm going to let Martin start it. But suffice to say that it's been reloaded on the truthproof.uk website today, or probably yesterday, because I spoke to Don, and Don's put it back on, and it's now a document that can be downloaded and then sent to the email address that will arrive at Martin's feet, so to speak, and myself and Martin will evaluate things from there. But where is that then? Don't make me look daft, Don.
No, it's not on that page, but
right.
Yeah.
But it's
on the website. You're like, where is it? Right. Well, look. I mean, exactly. I mean, I think the main thing is that we've created this tool, and I wonder whether or not the name is a bit daunting for some people, and it might be worthwhile us coming together as a group in the chat to think about what name we might want to have it, because it's
what's the name now, Martin? Just remind us of what we call it now.
It's the stratification. It's the paranormal phenomenon stratification triangulation tool. What does that mean? Stratification means what's been going on within the episode, and triangulation tool means trying to bring it all together so that we can get some data from it. Essentially, that's what that means. But we can name it whatever you like. I mean, it could be anything fun. We've had
as you've said, so people in the chat, we've close to 200 people in chat. If you've got any ideas for a name for this, fire them at us, because do you think people might be losing the way with the name when they're looking at the website?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite daunting. To be honest, I just put a scientific hat on, and what was I creating? This is what I was creating. Obviously with you, Paul.
No, it's fine.
And I didn't ask you what name I should call it. We should have come it together anyway. The stratification tool obviously was put on the website so that people could download it. I didn't appreciate that you could actually put your data into the thing on the website, and it wasn't meant for that. And so I think that's probably part of what's gone wrong here, because we've had quite a number of responses, but not nearly as many as we thought we were going to get.
I think that we need to be in the 50s and upper and hundreds really to start looking for any patterns. Do you not think that yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
the larger sample size, the larger number of people that respond, the more accurate the outcome it will be in terms of what you can gain from it. I mean, it's quite a long document, but the thing is that if you want to get all the variables, then you ask a lot of questions. Now, by no means do you have to answer all the questions. Even if you responded to 10 of them, you know, that will be enough. Just giving your description of what happened and a few bits of, you know, what was going on around that you could remember would be really, really helpful. Because, you know, once 100 people do the same thing, then it becomes a little bit more sort of significant.
It's more evidence based. We can look for patterns forming then, can't we? And look for things that might be showing up that we'd not previous. Because you've asked some questions that probably haven't been asked in other similar surveys, should we say? Because it's a kind of survey, isn't it? You know, it's
essentially. I mean, I think there's MUFON and things have got a questionnaire about what happened when you've had an encounter, but I don't think they go into the detail about, you know, were you hungry? You know, have you got sort of any issues with previous stresses? You know, sensitivity to the phenomenon. You know, are you spiritual? All of these things. It doesn't ask anything about the person. It just asks what happened to the person and what did they experience. It doesn't ask you about you. And if we're suggesting that this is a phenomenon that contacts us at not just a physical level, but maybe at this quantum field conscious level, is it something about the person that is of interest to it?
I saw something in. Oh, it's all right. I thought I saw something in the mirror window at back of you then, but I'm just imagining things. There's little lights passing. So carry on. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, can I just interrupt there? Would it be a good idea, Martin, to invite people from around the world into collating this information that you're collecting now? So not just here in the UK, America, and other places.
Well, that is a really good thought, Les. I mean, the phenomenon is a worldwide phenomenon. It's not unique to Britain or indeed Benton. Although there's a lot of stuff going on there. So in answer to that question, yeah, I mean, I think anyone who wants to fill out the form, even if it's, you know, rudimentary English, if you don't speak British, you know, the British language, you know, send in the form. If you're in America, we'd love to hear from you, because there's lots of stuff that goes on out there, and I don't believe that anyone's done the research of this type in America. So yeah, if anyone wants to respond, we are open and willing to hear from you, and are desperate to hear from you in order to get more and more data. And this is the community's data, really. It's not my data. It's not necessarily Paul's or Truthpo's data. True. Although we're doing it, this is the data for everyone who experiences the phenomenon and wants to try and get some answers.
And what about confidentiality on the data, Martin?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've said that you can download the form if you want, and it's a bit daunting just to download it, and you just want to get an email about it. I've actually put all of I think it's about 40 questions down into an email. It literally just says, you know, number one, what happened? Number two, you know, it goes through all the questions.
And they don't have to write a book, do they, as replies?
No. I mean, the answer here is were you hungry? I was expecting someone just to put a cross, you know, in the box and then send it back, that kind of thing. You know, I don't need to know if you had like a 3-course meal, or, you know, you just had a Snickers bar or whatever. It's more about, you know, were you hungry or not? You know, was it sugar or not? You know, if you can expand a little bit, brilliant. If not, no problem. If it was some time ago, the episode, and you can't remember, no problem. Just put down what you can remember, and we'll just make as much of the data as we possibly can.
I'm absolutely certain if we could get enough information in, that we will see that due to, let's just say, trauma or certain types of elation, or say somebody's reporting something from childhood, from their teenage years, that we're going to see that a certain type of phenomena presents. And that's what we want, isn't it? You know? Yeah,
I mean, the phenomenon presents in many ways, as we know. It presents in it can be the UFO kind of phenomenon, the poltergeist, the demonic, the angelic, the cryptid. We didn't even touch on cryptid. I mean, could all that be this high level of consciousness touching us? Maybe. Could it be real 3D cryptid? I mean, you go out hunting for this cat or whatever it might be, the cryptid, that flipping foot, where the hell did that come from? There's no boot prints around it. Where the hell, how did that manifest? I mean, we thought maybe could it be a gamekeeper or whatever, and he lost his boot, but well, where are all the boot prints around the foot?
Just to break into that, and I'm literally breaking in and saying no more. I have sent an email to Jeff Meldrum, and I have sent him an image of the print. And if he comes back and said that it's somebody fooling about, that's good enough for me. But I've done that. I know a lot of people in chat asked. So, right, sorry, Martin, go on.
I mean, just preliminary outcomes from the tool is, I mean, we see that most people are not necessarily hungry, but they haven't had a big meal. That's one thing. They haven't had a lot of sugar. I mean, I think what would be, I think a lot of people think or have shown, certainly some of the researchers said that if you have a lot of sugar, you seem to have less of a contact sort of frequency for this phenomenon. So it's hard to know what turns it off. This is more about what turns it on. Although you could probably extrapolate that if you're not hungry, then being full probably turns it off. So, which is interesting, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's this whole phenomenon about, stresses and heightening your awareness to the phenomenon. Recent deaths, recent things going on in your life, a lot of heightened stress or things like that. I mean, you have to obviously have an awareness that there isn't sort of hallucinogens, etc., going on. Although some people would say that, I spoke about DMT previously, that, there's the ayahuasca issue.
I was just thinking that when you said about hallucinogens, and we're not promoting that, by the way. We're not saying that people should use them in any way, shape, or form. But when people do go down that road, they purge themselves first. So I don't mean starvation, but as they'll fast and get their body ready, and so when you're talking about cutting down on sugars, cutting down on foods and certain foods, and you get a better response to the phenomena, there's probably something running parallel to that with the use of hallucinogenics, ayahuasca. I don't know.
Well, I don't. For what it's worth, I did the thing with Stephen Greer with the C5.
Okay.
I did a sort of an online thing. He was in LA and I was in England at 5:00 in the morning. And it was interesting. But I mean, part of the tool that he kind of advises you about is to try to not have sugar or alcohol for at least 48 hours or so beforehand. And I might be wrong. So Stephen, Dr. Greer, please, if I've said anything incorrect, do forgive. But he has some really incredible outcomes when he follows his protocol, which would be not to have sugary things, try not to be too hungry, meditate, create this resonant frequency within your mind at this quantum field level potentially, that then allows you to connect to the phenomenon. And maybe that's how it attracts them in at the conscious level, at this quantum field level, and then you get to see it at this 3D level, when it manifests, and maybe that's how all the other phenomenon is manifesting as well.
Thank you. Well, are we questioning?
Yeah, well, I've got something here. I've just got to scroll down.
I'm hoping that we're going to get Mark on in next 15,
we'll have
20
Mark
minutes.
on shortly, yeah.
Definitely.
So while you're scrolling, so
suggestions for the name. Zeno has said just the phenomena form.
The phenomena form. Okay.
Is there enough description in there, do you think, Martin, as to what it is, do you think?
It's a good one. It's a good one. I like it. I do like it, yeah.
Okay. Potential there, Zeno. And this one a bit humorous, I think, Lee.
Very good.
Yeah, that's probably what we all think, actually, Lee, when these things hit us clean between the eyes. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's Mark.
Hello.
Mark, welcome to the show.
How are you doing, Mark?
Yeah,
right.
we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Mark, Martin, Mark, and I know you know Les. So
Hi, Mark. Nice to speak to you.
And I'll just briefly say before you start telling us a few things that Mark's told me today something really interesting, and I spoke to Les earlier and Martin and said, would you mind if Mark comes on and shares this with us? And you can stay for rest at stream, Mark. For me, you know, your input's just as valid as anybody's. But you've been coming up to the cliff tops with us for the last, what would you say, the last 4 or 5 weeks?
I've been probably but about maybe 6 times in total, maybe 5 or 6 times.
Yeah. And myself and Mark have been friends for the last 20 years, and Linny's been friends before that. I think you used to work together, didn't you?
Yeah, I've known Linny.
And so how have you found it?
I found it very interesting going up there. Like you say, I have wanted to be up there for the last couple of years, and for one reason or another, I've not been able to get up. But this year, we're going for it. And what I like about it, when we first get up there, it's absolutely pitch black because your eyes aren't used to the darkness, and it must be. It's like about a half an hour before your eyes adjust.
Yeah.
And then just the awareness of everything that's around us, and I absolutely love it. Yeah.
But am I right in saying that prior to coming up here, your experience of experiencing anything of an unknown nature are pretty limited? You've not really.
No, I've had slight things. Like I've told you in the past, when we moved into our house years ago. It said on the wall in the front room, this house is haunted, dated 1966. So whoever decorated it then had wrote that on. And then 2003, we were having a renovation downstairs, all new floors and everything. And my friend, who was a plasterer, I got him in to do all the plastering. There was nothing written on the wall at that point, and he's just plastering the room. And he went, "Mark, do you know that your house is haunted?" And I went, "What makes you say that?" He says, "Well, I've got a gentleman here smoking, saying he likes what you're doing to the house." So I was like, "Really?" And he says, "Yeah." He says, "I can smell the smoke." Well, I can't smell. I couldn't smell it. He says, "Yeah, he's a fisherman. So fishing town. So maybe he was a fisherman years ago. Lived here." And that was that. And then another thing which I've told Paul about was my daughter, Bethany. She's 21 now. When she was little, in the back bedroom, just above me, Deb had taken her upstairs to bed, and she'd said to Deb, she went, "Oh, there's a man there." And Deb goes, "There's nobody there." And she went, "I know, because he's now here."
Really?
Yeah. And then Lily has done the same thing a few years later when she was born.
Nice.
And we do have TV going on and off in there. And there's a picture of my brother that I got from my brother. My brother passed away. And no matter how many times I straighten that picture up, it's always I've told Paul, even when we've stuck it with blue tack, it's always off. So we don't bother straightening it now. I don't know if it's my brother's kind of saying, "Hiya, I'm here," or what. But then the strange thing was that kind of happened, was it 2 weeks ago now?
2 weeks ago. And I've touched on it, but I said I'd look to get Mark on here.
Yeah, you mentioned it on Sunday, didn't you? So we were driving back from Benton one way about 10:30 at night. And we were just talking about how the more you talk about these things, they seem to emulate more.
You're on the radar.
Yeah. And as we were talking about in the car, I must admit, I didn't say anything, but I kind of felt a bit of a chill, if you like, as we were talking about it. Not now, so I'd go, "Oh, this is frightening," but it was like, "Oh, it's a bit, really." Anyway, I goes home, Paul drops me off outside my house, goes upstairs, and in my house, I've worked in IT for 20 years, so I have all automatic lights.
Everything's automatic. It's great big projector.
I have all the gadgets. Anyway, so it goes upstairs, lights come on, all that. Goes into my bedroom, get stripped off to go get washed before I go to bed, go to toilet. And as I opened the door, the light never came on, which I have 2 sensors up there, so absolutely gets you both. As soon as you open that door, it's on. There's no. By the time you've opened the door, you don't even see it's on. Not on. But what I felt was frightened, as though something was watching me. Really, and I felt it scared me to the point I ran to the bathroom. I used to go along the landing, down 2 steps, and then and I kind of ran in there and went to the toilet, got the light on. I'm like, safe now, I've got a light on type thing. But then I came out, light came on fine, not a problem, didn't feel frightened. Went into the bedroom, and then Lily, I didn't want to say this because she just came in and gone back upstairs now. She messaged me about 2 or 3 minutes later and went, Dad, why was you knocking on my door? And that kind of spooked me. And I instantly messaged Paul. You didn't get the message till the morning, did you, Paul?
No, I didn't get it till next morning. But
so I messaged Paul and I went, I'll just tell you what's happened, Paul. But, you know, Lily was like, what were you knocking on my door for? You were 5 or 6 knocks on the door. So, and I kind of had to lay it down a bit because I didn't want to frighten her.
Yeah, so, yeah, and it's strange, Martin, because we literally had just dropped Ian off, and we were talking about it, and it's all. And I think I said, and I know people might not subscribe to this, but I think it's all knowing. Whatever we're dealing with is all knowing, and you know, it's almost as though I get reports from people. And we'll get back to your story, but it makes sense in a moment. I get reports from people, and then suddenly they get an awareness of something around them again. I'm not wanting to put people off sending in reports, by the way, but it's almost like its eyelids have flickered. You've woke it up again. And I said to you this, and I'm hoping that there's not. Well, your daughter couldn't have imagined somebody knocking on the bedroom door anyway. So, but I'm hoping that I didn't frighten you by putting those words in, because I were talking about this, weren't I? Let's face it.
Yeah.
And because, but it's not stopped there. Just before we get to, it's not stopped there. What are your views on that, Martin?
Well, what do you make of that? I mean, it is scary. I mean, you know, you've got this unusual phenomenon. I mean, you said that you think it's the same phenomenon. I think the phenomenon probably presents in a number of ways, and I think there's a number of levels of the phenomenon. I wonder if there's an all-knowing phenomenon component where you know it can come at you in many different ways and can connect you in many different ways. But much like this, as I was saying at the beginning, you know, there could be aliens from another world touching on you. It could be this high-level plane phenomenon touching on you. So I don't think it's just. I know you believe very much that it might be a one phenomenon component.
Well, I think all cards need to be on the table. I'm not saying I'm right.
No, I think there's an element of it, but I'm just wondering if there's different nuances to it, that there's different levels of it. That you know that it isn't just one being, unless we're saying that it's
almost a godhead.
Almost exactly like it's part of the phenomenon. You know, our conscious, maybe it's this higher conscious being trying to enjoy itself and play about with us. So you know, we're the little pawns on the chessboard, and it's throwing in, I don't know, a He-Man, a toy He-Man to scare the bejesus out of everybody. You know, something like that. So
well, it's a trickster element, because obviously it rattled Mark, whatever it was. So before we get to the next part, how many times has anything like that ever happened in? Not just in that house, any house.
Well, for me, for getting back to, so just remember the comment that my friend did when he was pastoring. He said he likes what you've done to the house, and I only told Paul this other story while we was up at Benton the other week. So about 25 years ago, a friend of ours had an allergic reaction to antibiotics. He died in the ambulance. Luckily, they managed to revive him. He had a really bad reaction to it. But since he's had that, he actually died for about 5 minutes. And he said he saw the light and all that kind of thing. But he said since then, his dad comes to see him and talks to him. So this night, him and his wife had come over, maybe about 8 years ago, before lockdown. They were come one Friday night. Anyway, he smoked, so he went out to the back garden, and he was stood down the bottom having a cig. And when he come in, he went, "I've just been talking to somebody who used to live here." So I was like, why, is there somebody down the backs? He went, no, he used to live in this house. And he went, but he loves what you've done to the house. And me and Deb just looked at each other at that point, because that's exactly what Andy, the plasterer, said. And he says, yeah, he says he likes what you've done to the house.
So it's echoing the same thing, yeah.
Echoing the same thing.
Mark, I don't know if you were listening, but we were talking about this guy called Jeremy Long and his research in NDEs. And he he sort of says that there's a phenomenon that when you come back, you develop certain extra sensory things. So things like precognition and increased psychic phenomenon, that kind of thing. So this very much is in tune with what we were sort of discussing earlier. Your friend having and coming back with this ability to speak to ghosts or speak to the other world, beyond the veil.
I caught a little bit of it because I was kind of quickly in the shower and back down, so I didn't catch a bit of it.
And you were thinking about putting the house on the market, presumably.
No, because I've never ever been frightened in this house. It's weird because when that happened the other week, when I was frightened to go to the loo, I mean, you know, I'm a 50-odd-year-old bloke, and I go to the toilet quite frequently through the night. And when I went to the toilet again, I never felt anything. You know, opened the door, the light came on, and I went to the toilet. There was just but just that moment when I opened the door, and I felt as though, you know, when you just get that sense that somebody and something not nice was there, and that was the feeling I got.
We've had that on the cliffs, Paul. Do you remember when I came up and I was on my own, and you said you'd come out with me? And it was that really foggy night, and we sat on the bench just looking into the darkness, and you kind of looked at me and you went, "Are you all right, Martin?" I was like, I'm you know, we'd only been there 15 minutes. It was cold, and it wasn't because it was cold. I was scared. Yeah, there was something not right about where we were, and I just wanted to leave. And I didn't tell you I was scared. And then you said, "Oh, were you scared?" You know, you asked me, and I said, "Yeah, I was really scared." And I don't normally get scared. I mean, I can go up cliffs, no problem. But
we've had quite a bit of that, you know. and I don't think I'm saying out of turn. Me and Linny spoke about it last night. There's a guy comes up there. We really like Mark. We've a different Mark to Mark we're looking at now, and he comes up, walks up with no light on. Comes and we've become real good friends, all of us. And he had that terrifying experience up there. And we've noted, and if Mark's watching this now, I mean it in best possible way, but we've noted that he don't come down now. We out checking that we're down there first. He'll put a torch on and we'll flash to show him.
Yeah, we did that the other week, didn't we?
Yeah, this is the guy that's gone all over the place, Scotland and everywhere, wild camping and done his own thing. And he said that fear dropped on him, and he's never felt anything like it. And he talks about it regular. It's quite affected him. And I know that I had it a few years ago, and it frightened me. It really did.
But Benton's a really interesting place, because the last time we went, when we had the werefrog, I was saying to everybody, "We're going to have a great night, aren't we? We're going to see some really good stuff." And lo and behold, we did. And it wasn't because we were trying to make it happen in our minds and we were all sort of group delusion. We were seeing weird stuff, and I've got it on camera.
Strange.
You know, really.
And you know, we were up there, and we'll get back to Mark's story in a minute, but we were up there, a group of us, probably about 9 of us, and Heidi had come, Carl, Dan, Sarah, you know, and it were a thick fog night, and Jenny, Elaine were up, and Linny. I'm sorry, I'm going to miss names here, people, but there were a lot of people up there, unusually, because we don't even normally get that number. But it was thick with fog. Everybody had got the correct mindset. You know, we don't stand in dark just humming. You know, but it were just, the vibe was that we're interested in this. We want to see if something will happen. Thick with fog. How would you imagine that you're going to experience anything? But we did. One of the party lane got pushed, and you know, people can make it up. I could say I'd been pushed, but you've got to trust who you're with. And then we all, as a collective, not just one, not just singular. I think only person that didn't see the flash was Elaine. We were seeing flashes of light in the mist, not in the air, around us, and we're all commenting. Did you see it? Yeah, and it's just flashes of light. Now, to me, that's not a structured UFO. That's not a ghost or some apparition. But it's just as interesting. I find that just as fascinating. So it just shows that there's a lot of things happening on other levels, or maybe the same level, but just presenting in different ways. And you never cease to be surprised by what happens in this area.
I mean, I think you're spot on there. There's definitely a malevolent nature to the phenomenon, whether it be the one phenomenon or different elements of it that's presenting to different people at different times. But I think you're quite right, and certainly Dr. Greer's work would suggest it. If you go into the research and the looking for the phenomenon in the right mindset, you generally tend to have a more positive outcome. To be honest, some of the stuff that we're getting back from the tool is that people weren't really looking for it, and it came and found them.
And it found them. But what we want to find out is if it's found them, if there's something they've done specifically in life, or even eaten, and then we might see some patterns of, wow, we not necessarily might not want to connect to it. It might be a way, avoid doing this if you don't want that to happen, potentially.
Well, exactly. I didn't mention it, but I said I had created an email version of it. So if you don't want to have to download the Word document, just email the alien disclosure at aliendisclosure.co.uk. It's on the form, or you'll basically be emailing me, and I will email you an email version of the form, which is basically just questions, and you can answer it, and then you can email it back. That way you don't have to mess about with forms and things, and that way we'll get more data. If it just makes it another way to get it in.
To get it in there, yeah.
How it goes, if it's still too many questions, we might reduce it down or what have you, but if we can try a bit more, then that would be helpful. And sorry, Mark, I was just digressing a bit.
I forgot where we were. Have we spoke about the phone call yet, Paul?
We haven't. No, we haven't.
Right. So this is kind of a dual part thing, I think, because there's three things happening now, isn't there? But a while ago, and I've spoke on here about it before. Do you remember when we was at your house? And I was sorting out your computer or whatever we was.
We usually are sorting out my computer. Computer expert, this fella.
Yeah, so I'm usually go around. Paul will always ring me to just borrow your brain for a bit, he says. And so I usually just say, look, I'll come round, it'll be easy to sort it. Anyway, and I always joke, because I have multiple myeloma, so, it's potentially terminally ill thing. And I always joke, I'll go, what are you going to do when I'm gone?
I know, it nearly makes me cry, because that's just how he says it.
I'll say, what are you
best friends?
I can't keep next week, who's going to sort your computer out? And we had this laugh, didn't we? And I went...
Yeah, there was a laugh, something laughed.
Mary weren't there, was she?
No. So we both heard it. Something laughed.
And something laughed at us. But so getting back to yesterday, so I rung Paul to tell him I couldn't make it last night to Benton, because I was supporting my daughter with a community centre. And as we finished the phone call, we had a little chat, and then I went, and he went, right, I'll let you go, da, 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 da. And then I had this. The exact wording I can't. It was along the lines of, "Yeah, you will," or "Goodbye." Another woman's voice. And so I rung Paul straight back to say, "Hang on, that," because I kind of thought that's not Mary in the background, because it was actually within the phone. It weren't like somebody in the background going, "See you, Ma." It was like, and because I'm on here, I can't think the wording that.
Yeah, it's okay.
I don't know if you can remember what I said to you, Paul. It was along, yeah, goodbye, or something like that.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But then Paul said to me today, when I rung him back, and you rung me, didn't you? And he went, sorry I didn't get back to you. I said, that's fine. And then he went, well, I need to tell you something, Paul, because when I came off the phone yesterday, blah, 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 and he went, well, funny you should say that, because I had it with Mary the other day.
And I shouted Mary through to the kitchen where I were on the phone. And Mary picked a voicemail up from my aunt, who's not very well. We're helping her at the moment, and she leaves us a lot of voicemails. Basically, she forgets that she's rang us. And she'd left a voicemail, and Mary said, this is before Mark's message, and Mary said, come and listen to this. So I'm listening to it. She's left the message, and then at the end of the message, when there's a spell of silence, a man's voice says, no, you won't. She's not got anybody in property. We know we're there in the morning, we're there in the night. Really, really weird. And there's been another instance of it. We'll probably need to get Linny on because it's happened with him speaking to one of his relatives. I think it was yesterday.
So all in the same kind of time period, isn't it?
So what's happening there? I mean, there could be is somebody listening to your phone and saying snide things. It's ridiculous, really, because Linny's phone and his relative's phone, because I don't want to say who it is, unless he says it's okay, but Linny's phone and his relative's phone, they're not connected to my phone, are they? Do you know what I mean? So that's detached from there. Mark talking to me, my auntie leaving a message. There's 3 things there that's happened with some kind of electronic voice. Not necessarily phenomenon. What's your views on that, Martin? Do you think we're reading too much into it? Do you think?
Well, let's be objective, and then let's not be objective. So could it be that you are bugged, Paul? I mean, you touch on a number of sensitive things, and potentially you could be. I mean, you're one of the leading researchers in the UK. It's a phenomenon that the governments don't want necessarily to get out, and maybe you can get some sensitive information that might be something that people don't want out. So it could be that you're both bugged because they know, Mark, you're looking after his tech and his IT. We know that some people, researchers, have all of their tech wiped. You know, they have data, big data, caches that just for some reason one evening is gone, right? So could it be that they're looking at doing that to Paul, or could it be that something like that's going on? Okay. If it's not that, if it's not sort of, cross wires, what have you, then could it be that your haunted house, Mark, is interacting and connecting? Could it be that you've got the hitchhiker effect, Paul? And same with Linny. We know, well, I think you probably have a bit of hitchhiker effect.
I think that's what it is. I'll be honest with you. Especially as we gave it a little. I gave it a little nudge by talking to Mike and saying, I think this is aware of everything we're doing. And, and I think by talking about it, and I mentioned the hitchhiker effect, Mark, didn't I? I says we can actually take these things back with us. And I don't necessarily think that there's something attached to you and you're carrying it back. I think it's in here. And I think it's the intermind connection myself.
Could this be a expansion of this remote viewing phenomenon? So we're very primitive at it. In actual fact, the phenomenon's very good at it. And not only can it see, but it can speak and it can say and it can make you have fear. It can prevent or produce emotion. Could it be a theme of that? That's a concept.
Well, it was certainly interesting. I mean, right, let's have a look. Paul, that's fine. It was the morning talking to my mum. Do you know, Les? I mean, I don't know whether he'd even be wanting to do that, but I could throw a link out to him if he wanted. Just give me a thumbs up, Les, if you. Well, he's there. What do you think, or shall we just carry on what we're doing and we'll get Ian to have a little natter about this on Sunday?
Ask Ian what he wants to do.
Let us know what you want to do, Ian, and I'll send you the link via email. I'll just go off for a minute, and then you can add your little bit as well. If Mark and Martin have got no objection.
Oh, great! No, I'd love to say hello to Linny. Yeah, he's awesome.
I mean, it was weird earlier when you rung with Paul and said, it happened to Linny. I went, oh my God.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to go offline because I don't mean I can read his mind, but I have an idea. So I'll be 2 minutes.
Okay.
It'll be your email, Ian, if you want to do it.
Okay,
Mark, I was just thinking you're going to have some really good jokes for this ghost because it starts laughing at some of the stuff you're coming out.
Yeah. Well, but the ghost was Paul's house. Yeah. So I don't know if it was the ghost from my house. I mean, I've been in this house since '96, and we've had a handful of things, never anything frightening I mean, we kind of joke about, it's like Lily, she's 40, and we do jokes sometimes. We'll go, your uncle. Because my brother was called Mark. I know it's a bit weird, but we were both adopted. Oh. So, we'll say, your Uncle Mark's in there, But, and Bethany used to come down and say, telly's gone on at night again on its own, It got to the point where it was just like, it goes on and it comes on and weird things.
It's so interesting how the phenomenon seems to, present in very similar ways. So it's electromagnetic phenomenon. So turning on and off lights, TVs, etc. and then you've also got, you know, we've got the apports that Paul's got, you know, and I just wonder if maybe it's easier for it to present in certain ways, and that's why we're getting, you know, the common things like the TV turning on and off. It's actually quite easy for it to interact with electricity and electromagnetic radiation. Hence, we get vibration. Hence, we get this sense of fear. I don't know. I'm speculating, but it's interesting how it seems to drive closer to that than just coming out as a full-bodied apparition in front of us.
Yeah, the other interesting thing is, though, the TV that was in there, Bethany took to uni with that. She says it's never, ever turned on itself.
Well,
so it's located around the house. Interesting.
So it's in that bedroom, yeah.
We were talking about the strangeness other week. Myself and Ian were on the phone, and Ian's wife was in the same room as him, but they obviously couldn't see into the other room, and the television turned itself on. She just suddenly said, "Television's come on," and we were talking about. I mean, have you ever experienced something like this, Les?
No, but I'm going to pick up on something potentially terrifying in my eyes. What Martin said, and it's this hitchhiker effect. Because this is what you're kind of suggesting. It could be a hitchhiker effect that Paul's going through. Hitchhiker effect that probably Mark may be going through. I mean, because this not only does it affect these individuals, Mark and Paul and other people, but it affects family as well, doesn't it, Martin?
Yeah, it's got this contagiousness to it, hasn't it? Was it Nathaniel that mentioned it's contagious? I can't remember.
And Rob Blueshift mentions it's a contagious thing.
Rob's spot on. It's interesting that the contagiousness of it is that, you know, if it's negative, it seems to be negative to others as well, and if it's positive, it seems to not be quite so scary. It's interesting. I mean, I see
Sarah Jennison's saying Mark Sturdy. Lots of stuff happened to us like that. TV turning on and off, and I think she means in our house because that's my daughter. I didn't know Sarah were in. She's never in normally, so hi Sarah. I've got to get that one in. And just a few more names. We've got Charlotte Cornell, Fire Spirit, Dogman TP Hunting, Matthew Cook, Deb Shaw, Carol Poynter, and that's all I can see.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for support, guys.
Wasn't one of your family members, didn't they hear a growl?
Gemma. Yeah, we'd not seen her in 2 years, and she came last week. And we went up onto cliff tops, and she was kind enough to talk about it to me. And, because she's not in. Sarah's had a bit of experience of the strangeness in the house, but Gemma's, the growl were right at the back of her head.
Yeah.
Would you like some questions?
Yeah, please do. And Lenny, just let me know if the link doesn't open. I have sent it to your email. So,
okay, then question from Studio 211 Productions. Martin, what are your thoughts on inanimate objects from the past that are seen, such as World War II aircraft and the dark and white peaks and spectral railway engines? Etc., ghosts or replays of events?
Really good question, Studio 211. I mean, could it be that phenomenon where you have time slips? It could be something of that nature. You've got stories where people have been driving and then they go into it's taken them hours to get somewhere, and they've driven along a road and they know the road, and then they suddenly see different unusual things that shouldn't be there, and then they arrive at their destination and it's hours too late, and then they appreciate that where the hell were we? We weren't where we were supposed to be, and it's the same road as always. So World War II aircraft could be time slips. I mean, there's that this phenomenon where people see unusual planes, unusual things that may not be appropriate for the timeline. I don't know. It's really weird. I mean, space-time is weird. I mean, some people say it's folded, it's bent, so that's why you can see curvatures and things when they look through different telescopes, not the Hubble one, but the other one, the James Webb. So at our level on this planet, I don't know if that would be something you scientifically could say is the reason behind it. But yeah, time slips might be it. Could it be echoes of things that have happened potentially?
Certain areas, Martin, seem to hold certain types of, we'll call them apparitions or things that like time slips. I don't know whether Mark knows this, but there's supposed to be a ghost aircraft at Fridaythorpe that people see. You know, a World War II aircraft at Fridaythorpe. And
I actually have a story, and I think Linny might be able to corroborate this as well, because he worked with Sarah Lee, if you don't mind. So it was an engineer, it won't mind me mentioning his name, because we spoke about this quite a few times, because we go to our Sarah Lee reunion breakfast every other Friday, and we were actually on about this a few weeks ago. So one of the engineers and one of the freezer where we used to have the freezer at Sarah Lee, where they used to bring the lorries in to take all the goods away, he was stood out the back, and a Lancaster bomber came in. Now, Sarah Lee's was based on the old World War II aerodrome.
Carnaby.
And it was one of the ones with where they used to put the petrol down to get the fog up. There is a name for it. I can't quite remember, but they used to light it so you get all the fog. But it was more used for damaged aircraft. So if they'd been partly shot down, it was a way to come and land before basically the crash.
Yeah.
Crash and burn. So there was a lot of things that happened there, and they were stood in the loading bay, the freezers. This Lancaster bomber came flying past, and he says they were like, "Oh, is there an air show on or something over the next few days?" We're nothing.
No.
So and they were both. Did you see that? He said it was just like a proper. It just went down past them.
If we were to say it's maybe related to this quantum field phenomenon, where our consciousness lives in this quantum field, and we're basically looking at the game around us, we could say that perhaps at the quantum level, the plane has left an imprint of itself. So this is, I think, Moon. I think someone called, I can't remember the last name there, Moon something. Sorry, I saw that. You thought that might be an imprint of energy on the world around us. Could it be that we're detecting at that quantum level the imprint of the plane as it flew along, and like almost like an echo of energy? We're actually detecting it. That I could sign. I mean, as a scientist, I would think. And again, if all of this is real and the quantum field theory is real, that might be an explanation as to how it might happen, rather than it being time slips, etc.
But Linny, I know Linny's heard a story of something that went off. You don't mind me saying, Linny, but we were discussing kind of these things up at Carnaby, and there was something he was telling us about it. So he might be able to say yes, no to that.
Okay, at this point, I think we've got Lenny coming into the stream. We'll bring Lenny on.
Now then, Ian, you all right?
All right.
Yeah, Lenny, good to see you, mate.
Now then,
Hi, everybody. Struggling to hear you a bit, but never mind.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot like that, Ian. But
That's okay.
Well, let's just pick up where Mark left off. So we've got the weird phone call with the answer phone message that somebody spoke on my auntie's voice call that said, "No, you won't." We've got the weird phone call that Mark's heard whilst leaving me a message. Is that correct, Mark? Yeah.
No, I weren't leaving you a message. It was when you ended the call.
Well,
So
when I
you
ended
just
the call,
literally said, "Right, I'll catch you later, Mark," and it went something like, "Yeah, goodbye," or something like that.
Right, okay. And then I've told you this, and tonight I did tell Ian that we were going to get Mark on because he was going to share this strange phone call, and simply because of the fact that by Mark mentioning this, it prompted me to remember that Mary had said, "Come and listen to this call." Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. It was Mary that listened to the voicemail, and then Ian went. Well, first of all, let me just step back a few paces. He said, "Has anything happened? Anything strange happened to you at home?" And I said, "Well, it's a little bit, yeah. But let me tell you this about Mark." And then Ian went into this description of what happened during a phone call. So I'll leave it to you.
I mean, a lot of people who sort of like listen to this think, well, yeah, I mean, is it all coincidental? Are we making it up? Well, what have we got to gain by it? I mean, we tried something a little bit different last night, me and you up on the cliff tops.
We did.
I hadn't spoken to you today until later on, so hence why I was asking. Has anything happened? And then when you said what had happened with Mark, then I told you I had a conversation this morning long conversation as usual with my mum. And my mum was telling me different things and was talking about what had gone on last night and this, that, and the other, and what's gone on the past few days. And my mum puts the phone on speakerphone, and I could hear a man's voice in the background. So I said, "Yeah, I mean, is that my old man, like my stepdad?" And my mum says, "No. Why?" I said, "Well, I can hear someone in the background." And my mum says, "Well, he's upstairs with his headphones on doing his music." So I'm like, "Right, okay." I said, "Well, it might be an echo, so let me just talk loud." So I said quite a few different words to see if I'd hear the voice come back, if it was some form of feedback or whatever. Anyway, there was nothing. So we carried on talking, and then there was one particular thing last night that happened on the cliff tops. I got this thing in my head, which we'll maybe talk about at another time. And basically, it was to do with a sentinel, which is someone that looks over things and watches. And then in the background, a man's voice, clear as day, just says watching. And I said to him, "Mate, did it again. Did you hear that?" And my mum says, "Didn't hear anything. But I heard it say watching." So it's again, it's another odd one, but it's not just a connection with me. I mean, it's happening now. I'm not saying it is all the same thing, but I spoke to Paul at length a few weeks ago. My youngest daughter lives out in the middle of nowhere. They have a Ring doorbell, and when she works strange shift, really odd shift patterns and whatever. So asleep, she can be awake at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then depending what shift pattern she's on. Quite often around between 2 o'clock and 2:30, her Ring doorbell goes. Well, it picks up motion. She goes to it. There's nothing there. There's nothing on camera. It doesn't pick anything up. But it only happens when she's awake. If she's asleep, she's in bed with a partner and whatever, nothing happens. It's only when they're downstairs or they're upstairs and they're awake. Well, today she said they were sat there watching telly, and there's a on the back door. So, well, someone's, it's a parcel or whatever, but the ring doorbell didn't go off. So, yeah, that was good timing, wasn't it? So she went, had a look, nobody there, nothing there, looked back at the camera footage on the Ring doorbell, absolutely nothing. So whether that was invisible hands, it was on the inside or the outside, who's to know? It's just a bit odd that some of the things that have happened, other people seem to pick up and hear about the same thing. I mean, like the watching thing, what's all that about?
Absolutely. Any views, Les? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely amazing in my mind. It's unexplainable.
I'm sorry for putting you on the spot there, Les, but I didn't want to.
Yeah, I was going through all the questions, mate, and I don't know if you just want to pick up on some questions because we've got quite a few.
Yeah,
and I'm going to carry on.
And if anybody wants to fire a question at Linny, Mark, or Martin, please do, because we've got half an hour left here. So, and thanks for coming on at last minute there, and it just corroborates what Mark was saying, and I know you were in chat.
Okay, so I just got a question from David Back. I know you picked up on this earlier, Martin, but I don't know if you want to add to it. Do you think you get to be back with your loved ones, or do we all split and live a completely different life? So no heaven and hell. Martin,
well, I think we covered it a little bit, but in terms of heaven and hell, I think that's probably, if you were thinking about the Book of the Dead from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, they would talk about you doing your life review, and it's your, the evil components of your psyche presenting itself as demonic or what have you, and certainly the life review is a phenomenon that happens across most NDEs, true NDEs anyway. So I think you'd probably just come back and do another round if you hadn't got what you needed from this life, as it were.
Okay, and Dragonborn is following on from what you just said there. Dr. Abbas, where do you believe we go, for want of a better term, when we die? Do we go anywhere?
Do you know what? I once spoke to someone. I can't say in what way I spoke to them, but they mentioned that they had recurrent lives, and I asked them, and I might have mentioned this before, but I asked them what happens in between, and he said it's just blackness. Because I said, is it light? Is it dark? And it's black, and then I start a new life, And he'd been I think he'd been. I can't go.
But you can't go any deeper with it. But
yeah, but it was interesting because I tried to ask what's the in between, and they didn't have an answer.
Yeah, but there's something beyond the in between though, because I've heard people talk about this, and I've heard the more skeptically minded people saying, "There you go, there's nothing, but there is."
Yeah,
because you actually are aware that there's blackness, so we know there's something.
Well, not just that. The NDEs would talk to you about, what does it look like, so that you go through the tunnel, and then there's the whole thing, or a stairwell, whatever it might be, and then there can be different ways that it might present to you. It might be crystal heavenly kind of cathedral-esque places to see. It might be a nice forest. All sorts of ways, clouds, it can be all sorts of things.
Do you think that we're seeing what we want to see then in that respect?
I think so Taffeta the Buddha, they would say this is something from scripture, would say that with our thoughts we create the world around us, or with our thoughts we create the world. So in that would you would extrapolate that when we die, whatever, our conscious mind creates the mindscape, as it were, and what we then see. So if you want to experience hell, that's actually you creating that.
Right.
You are creating that. You wish to be tormented for something, versus religious doctrine, which would say, well, actually that's actually existing. I personally don't believe that exists. I would think it would be us, and it's part of our way to try and improve our spirituality and gain enlightenment. I'm not necessarily Buddhist. I'm not necessarily religious, but from what I've read and the scientific literature on NDEs, etc., wouldn't imply a formal hell. It would be something that we create ourselves.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Good point, that Martin. But I'd like to ask Linny something. And it's just what I discussed with you earlier, Martin and Mark. Is Linny, do you think you're affected by the hitchhiker effect?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Whether it's something that attaches itself, while we've been up there, let's say, whether it attaches itself and it follows you home, I can't say. I think it's more likely. How I think of it is, the more you experience, the more experienced you get, and then it's a light. It's maybe a sign saying, this person's more receptive now, or you start noticing things that you probably wouldn't have noticed before.
Yeah,
but there's definitely been a ramp up.
Yeah,
for the last few weeks.
And at what point would this hitchhiker effect become disruptive to your life, do you think, Lenny?
Well, you really put me on the spot now, and Paul's aware of something that happened to me only a few weeks ago that I'm really uncomfortable about talking about at the moment.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I want to speak to Martin about it as well as other people, because what happened, and I'm not dangling a carrot here for some, to talk about in a later show, because I will speak about it, but at the moment I think it could frighten the living daylights out of a lot of people, and it frightened me, and it takes quite a bit to frighten me, but it was a physical interaction, and it wasn't a little poke or a prod, or
throw the same question.
Sorry, Martin. Here's a question: do you think the phenomenon realizes what it's doing, or it's doing certain things that it can do, and it doesn't necessarily understand what we have a sense of as fear, for example. It just gives you fear because it's getting a response. So much like you might.
I personally, I've wondered this myself. Yeah, I have thought about this quite a bit, Martin. And does it understand what it's doing? And if we go up there, let's assume a group of people go up there with a dark intent. Yeah. I'm saying up there, I shouldn't say that. Go somewhere with some kind of dark thoughts in mind. Then essentially they will sort of connect with what they're looking for. And maybe the phenomena, in some aspects of the phenomena, don't actually realize. And maybe they're just communicating. They might not know that this is dark or this is bad. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I absolutely think that. Yeah, I do think that it's not necessarily knowing what effect it's having on.
No,
if I was a scientist, if I was that phenomenon as a scientist, and I heard I don't know, you say hello in a nice voice, I'd say back hello in a nice voice, and if you went, I'd try and back at you, and so you being fearful or angry or aggressive, I'd think, oh well, that's how you communicate.
That's the communication, yeah.
You know, and then you think to yourself, well, maybe that's why they have these specialist communicators when they apparently interact with non-human biological entities, because they don't want to say the wrong thing and start an interstellar war or something.
or end up ill or even worse. Well, exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Just the question that Les threw out to Ian. How do you feel about it, Mark? Because like you've just said, it's not really affected you anything really over years and years and years. Do you think you're being targeted by something after going up there?
Yeah. After that night, I can still picture that night driving as we drove through the bottom of Benton. You know, as we go past the little pondy bit there, and I can still picture it. And that's where I felt kind of a bit. Oh, feel a bit uncomfortable. I can talk about it all night up there, like you do. But I just felt I'm sat in the back here on my own, and it was like, oh, you know what I mean? It's almost like, you know, like when you're a little kid and you just need your mum's hand to hold you to make you feel safe. I kind of felt a bit like that. Right, I didn't say anything, and then when that happened, when I got home, it was almost as if by talking about it, it's now come and it's with us in the car.
Yeah, it's interesting because. Ian will say the same thing about what happened with Jeremy, and he's probably listening to this. And he drove home after that interaction, that strange thing that happened with his car, thinking somebody was sat in the back of the car with him. This is a bloke that goes up there, and Linny knows this. We would see his car in the car park in the dead of night in winter, and. Where's Jeremy? Oh, I don't know. And an hour later, he'll just loom in out of darkness. No torch, nothing. Walks about. He's not trying to be brave. That was just him. But what happened there frightened him. It's to the point where he said, I'm not coming here alone anymore. Am I right, Ian?
Yeah, he said he won't go up there on his own. I mean, like, you're right what you said. I mean, sometimes we'd be up there for ages. You know, a lot longer than an hour, and then he'd pop out from any direction, you know, up to Spate and down to Danes Dyke or wherever, and he'll go out and he'll find somewhere, you know, it's quiet, but one of the benches he'll sit up there for a bit. But it was, I know we're going over all ground here, but he was totally changed. You could see his face. It frightened the hell out of him, and now he's got himself a little adapted little walking stick, hasn't he?
He has, yeah, for want of a better word. So he feels a bit more comfortable. Yeah.
So, Paul, we were talking about sensors or receptors.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly we're not using our eyes or our ears to detect the phenomenon sat behind us in the car. So what else is it? I mean, that's where I think we have that kind of, quantum field detecting around us, and perhaps we have something happen to us. We're more receptive, as you say, Liddy, when we have more experiences, and that increases. People talk about this vibration or frequency that we have, and I wonder if we vibrate at this quantum level in a different way that allows us to detect the world around us at the quantum level, and we can then sense the dark shadow, the dark entity that walks across Benton. We can now detect it. not necessarily with our eyes, but because remember, our eyes just tell us what's going on around us. But as I said to you at the beginning, we're creating what we can see in our mind's eye at this quantum level. Our consciousness is actually not part of this 3D reality. It's kind of at the grey area between this world and the other world. And I just wonder, when we have more interaction and more contact, we actually increase that vibration ability. Exactly. So our quantum consciousness can then detect, using this other sense, this other, for want of a better word, the same thing that we use for remote viewing, to sense all of these things around us.
Because basically what we're talking about: touch, sight, hearing, audio, smell, and taste. Yeah, and that would be the base level, would it? But there's more. There's more going off, isn't there?
There's way more. I mean, we're sensing it and detecting it on Benton. The fear response is not because you can't necessarily sense or see or smell or hear something. There's something else going on, and what is twigging? What is the trigger for that fear? What is the Jeremy sensed someone in the back of his car.
Yeah,
he couldn't hear someone, so he's sensing something else.
And Linny knows, and I don't know if Mark were there when the other Mark talked about the fear. I know I've touched on it tonight, but he'll not mind us saying it. It affected him, didn't it, Ian? It really did.
It is. We've spoke about my experience up there, your experience up there, and Mark's, as in Benton Mark's experience. It was, I mean, yeah, I don't say anything that I won't say to someone's face. He'd lost his little, he had his little dog. He used to turn up there with his little dog that he'd had for a long time. It's 16, 17 years of age, I think, maybe even older. And it used to wander about with him all over. And he used to take it up there on a regular basis. Unfortunately, it got old and the dog passed away. So he buried it not far away.
Right, yeah.
And this particular night where this fear was put on him, he said he was going up there, which he'd been up there a few times, just to make sure that, on the route down to wherever he's buried his dog, he just wanted to go up that way and just make sure everything was still all right. So to me, he was his emotional state will have been slightly different. He'll have been a bit sad and he'll have been a bit peeved off that he hadn't got his dog anymore. And I personally think that whatever was lurking around up there has used his emotion to get under his skin and to frighten the hell out of him. Whether it meant to frighten the hell out of him, I don't know. But he said he just walked into it, and the further and further and further he went, the worse it got, until he came out of it at the other end.
Like a wall, wasn't it? He walked into a wall.
He physically had to push himself. And when I had that thing up on the hill, my emotional state hadn't been the best it had been. I mean, it was good news for me, but earlier on in the day, it might have been absolutely horrendous news. And that's when I got that fear put on me, which, you'll know about. For other people, I don't know. I mean, when you act back to Jeremy, he went walking to speed and felt right as rain. And then he came back and he got that awful feeling telling him to climb to the railings.
Yeah.
And he said he could step in and step out of that. Said it was just in one localized area where it was like it was, possibly beamed there. And it hadn't happened in that area for him before. Nice. And we've had that with lots of different people who it seems to target people. I mean, with Alex, for instance, he'd had it, and we just told him, tell it to, go away and step back away from the edge.
Just 1 second, Ian, because I think he might have some questions or...
Well, we've got lots of questions in, but I'd just like to pick up on what Paul said earlier. When people go up to them places with dark thoughts, because at their low emotional level, like what you was talking about, Lenny, then obviously this entity, this phenomena is going to grab hold of your low emotions, your feelings, more quicker than anybody who's gone up there. Even though,
I think this could be anywhere, Les. I think we could be talking about anywhere.
Yeah, and but it's, I suppose it's it's how easy this phenomena can grab hold of a person.
Tap
You talked about the fear factor, and I'd like to know from Dr. Martin Abbas is how exponential is this fear factor? If you go in with a slight fear of something, how quickly do you think your conscious mind overtakes everything and you eventually running out of the place that you're in?
Well, the thing about humans is that we are the product of what we've come across so far. So, you know, every horror film that you've ever watched will probably race through your mind. you know, American Werewolf in London. If I'm up on that hill with Paul and there's a flipping cryptid knocking about, I'll be running the opposite way. Paul will be taking a picture, and I'll be, halfway to the car park.
But not far behind you.
I think there could be an exponential increase in your fear if you saw something really scary, and it's a natural fear response to run away. I mean, that's why your adrenaline, your cortisol shoots through the roof when you have a fear response. It's designed for you to survive and give you that extra burst of energy. So yeah, I mean, the thing is controlling it and remembering to take the video camera, turning
But how much of me talking about that to Mark affected what happened to him? Like raising his, not fear levels, because I never said anything trying to make Mark feel anxious. We were just talking about it. But I wonder now how much of talking about it and obviously raising some levels of uneasiness in Mark, how much of that contributed to the outcome?
Well, again, if we are also creatures to try and create patterns, aren't we? So if we can create a pattern in our minds that this is what happens when I'm on this bit of the cliff and it feels bad, right? Okay, Paul's told me about an incident that happened here, so this is probably going to happen again. We'll assume something, and maybe make it happen. So could it be that you told him something bad was going to happen? He went into with the mindset that was going to happen.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Created it, and it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, that's why I try and go up onto the cliff without that kind of feeling. We're going to have a good night, Ian and Paul. We're going to have a great time, and we're going to see some stuff. And lo and behold, we do. Versus that time, it was a foggy night, and I was feeling a bit scared, and then I felt extreme fear on that flipping bench. It was an unrealistic fear, though. It was way more than I thought you should have. I was having all sorts of weird thoughts about something coming out of the fog at me from the cliff. I mean, there's nothing beyond that cliff apart from the North Sea.
Absolutely.
But I was on that cliff and I was thinking that anything's going to come out and get me. There's going to be a wolf going to drag me down. Honestly, it's very unusual thought processes for a scientific individual that doesn't. What's the worst thing that can grab you on that cliff? Probably a badger.
Nothing really. Nothing.
No.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't think Paul will mind me saying this. I mean, one night, it was pretty dark as it usually is, and I was late sort of like as usual, and Pete and Paul was up on the top stand, and I could see Paul. He was on his phone, so I could see his face lit up. So I got closer and closer. I wasn't trying to sneak up on him. Got closer and closer, and he'd finished his phone call, so his eyesight wouldn't have been the best with him being blaring himself with him being on the phone. And I got really close. The next thing you know, Paul's like shouting, and he's got his arm tucked behind him, ready to throw his torch at me. Yeah, I mean, he was like screaming and whatever, and Pete in his Pete's way just went, "You're all right, Ian."
Well, it just shocked me, but I was ready to. Yeah. I'd flipped a little bit. Yeah. Well, yeah.
What I was trying to get at is all the years and that you're up there, and me appearing out the darkness just caught you off guard.
Absolutely, it did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at.
And you were expected though, Ian. They were expecting you to show up.
Yeah. And we're not normally that jumpy, but yeah, it did happen. And I'm glad I didn't throw torch at him because he'd have probably thrown me.
Okay, can I get
right,
this question
Al-Durham.
from Al-Durham? Yeah, Dr. Abbas, I know you talked about time slips a little bit earlier, but this is in reference to those reported on Ball Street in Liverpool, which is a pretty famous case. I don't know, you probably know about that, and the Kelsey incident. Could it be a trick of the minds or like a virtual headset replay type thing?
Yeah, I don't think it's a trick of the mind. I think there's definitely an unusual phenomenon that's going on. And it's often associated with unusual frequency, isn't it? Unusual sound frequencies that people can hear when it first starts. You've got that unusual thing in Liverpool going on as well. So yeah, I think if our consciousness is not governed by time and place, then theoretically you could manipulate your conscious mind at that field level to see different things and different things. So liken it to the Matrix. Everyone's seen the Matrix, and they see, they can kind of look at the people thought about this Matrix universe, and I can understand why they might give you that concept, because it's easy to understand. You've got this Matrix, and you see the real world around you, but there's also more to it than that. There's loads of, there's all the lines of energy and all the rest of it going on. And are we detecting these time slips, as it were, or is it, different realities that we've just seen, or different versions of our 3D reality that have been played out again and again and again previously? Are we using this kind of quantum level consciousness to detect these things and experiencing or glimpsing things that have gone before us that aren't governed by time and place? So we can see different times. We can see the future. You can see different things. You've seen that. That was it a couple, or someone said they saw a couple at the monolith.
At the Runston monolith, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they thought these people were time travelers. This guy, essentially, that's what he thought he'd encountered. Yeah.
Really unusual things. So again, I'm always trying to figure out a scientific explanation for it, and the one I'm coming towards is this kind of Matrix thing. The kind of at a quantum level, it's the quantum Matrix.
Well, I don't want to put Mark on spot, but I'm going to put Mark on spot. If you can recall it, tell us about the guy that this is kind of an echo in time, maybe. The guy that was cycling to work that changed his route when you worked.
Yes, the guy that he died not so long ago, actually.
Did he?
Yeah. So he was going to work on his push bike. So you leave Braidwood. We worked at Carnaby, and we call it top road, bottom road. So top road you can get through to Driffield, bottom road you go through to Hull. But they both the same place. So he lived at West Hill, and his quickest route is to go through Besenby, and then straight down to Carnaby, and then it's a nice slope road into work.
Along the top road.
Along the top road. Well, this one summer I thought, I'm going to start cycling to work. So I'm going to work, and Mike's coming down bottom road. What's that Mike in front of me? So I pedalled up to him, and I was like, why don't you go top road anymore? He went, oh, something came out at me. So around Besenby, there's like a wall that kind of follows the road line all the way down. There's like it's an old people's Besenby Hall, I think it is. And there's a wall that goes there. There's like a doorway in the brickwork, I think. It's kind of covered with bushes.
It's been bricked up, isn't it? It's been bricked up.
Yeah. And he said something came out of there. He said it was almost like a monk or a bear, or just something came out across the road to him. And it frightened him enough that he never went back to the top road. He went down the bottom road and then ended up, so he was going almost probably 3/4 of a mile out of his way to not go that way again.
It frightened him that much. And I love little stories like that, because somebody might be listening from the area who's experienced it or knows somebody, and we just put a bit more meat on the bone. So thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Can I just tell you a little story about Besenby that I got told one of my best mates a long time ago?
Please do.
He grew up around there, and he actually lived in Besenby village. And he said, near where Mark will know, better than me. But there's a part of that where there's a wall, and then behind it the ground is like level with the other side of the wall. It's a lot higher. He said it was dark, and he had a big Alsatian dog, real good dog. And he said he was walking along, and his dog went mad, was going mad, growling and barking. And he looked up, and he said there was a fella stood on top of the wall who just looked. He said he just looked straight at him, and he tipped his cap, and he went, "Evening, Squire," and then he was gone. And that's at Besenby.
Yeah,
that was in Besenby village, was it?
In Besenby village, yeah.
What's happening there? It's got to be some kind of residue of energy, surely, trapped in time. But then again, this had an awareness. It recognised that there's somebody there.
Yeah. just getting back, do you remember the story of PJ seeing the Lancaster bomber here at Sarah Lynn?
I've heard quite a few stories regarding Carnaby. I mean, there was, even though it was only about for a long time, it had quite a lot of history and quite a lot of tragic events that happened on there. But no, I can't.
Can't remember. It might have been after you left.
No, I mean it's you know, I mean, nearly 40 years ago now. It's a long time ago.
Okay, I'm going to bring another question in only because I do have a lot, and I'm looking at the clock. You guys, Zeno always gets good questions in. Hi, Zeno. Hi, Martin. What if we imprint consciousness events in the program with raw emotion? The deepest fear, pain, despair seems to be on the extremes of feeling. Could it make echoes of events or people? Kind of picking up on what we talked about earlier.
Yeah, Zeno, I think that's spot on. I think some of the reports we've had in have been associated with high levels of emotion, although some haven't. I mean, I won't necessarily describe it in great detail, but someone just driving along and they see an unusual thing go through a wall, an unusual shadow just going along and go through a wall. There's no emotion to that, but it's obviously something that's been seen and visible. But yeah, I think we hear lots of stories about ghostly phenomena, certainly poltergeist, which are often associated with high degrees of stress stories. So murders, etc., etc. The potential thing that's in Dane's Dyke, the White Lady, a drowning potentially. I don't know. Yeah. Certainly, it seems to be that a lot of these stories where imprints of ghosts or whatever it might be phenomenon are due to heightened emotion. So and
trauma-based emotion
events. Exactly. Yeah.
Anybody else want to come in on that one?
No, all good.
All good. Right. David Drummond got a question. Is it just confined to coming back as a human, or can it be we are animals as well? Open to everybody, this one.
Yeah. I haven't even got a comment or anything to add to it. I don't know.
I think there's an element of what if your conscious mind was coming back, it would want to be able to experience certain things, and probably at a higher level. So maybe not a sort of a worm level, because what you're doing is going around in the ground and potentially getting snapped up by a blackbird. Versus, it'd be very interesting though if we come back as a non-human biologic. Something of a Pleiadian or whatever it might be, if these things really exist, that would be an interesting thing. Could you come back that, is there a species that doesn't have emotion? That would be what to come back as. Anyway,
are we at a point, Martin, where these reincarnations, these past lives, these consciousness, what gets carried on, are we trying to raise the consciousness of humans? Are we going to another level, Martin?
Well, theoretically, the ancient texts, the books, etc., would the Tibetan book that I mentioned it before would suggest that you are trying to become more enlightened and have compassion. They talk about compassion a lot. The Buddhist teaching talk about compassion, and in that is going through a number of life events that you then turn the other cheek. I don't know. I mean, I think we are trying to improve ourselves if this is a real phenomenon, and the science seems to show it on the research that you look at. It's esoteric science, though, isn't it? It's not mainstream. It's all although there's large data sets, 5,000 patients is a lot of people, but you can only extrapolate based on what you can see. And I extrapolate that we're trying to enlighten ourselves and make ourselves better humans. Human being a conscious entity that has compassion and love and caring about the world around it.
Okay, and I think we're in for a quick advert, Paul. If you want to tell people about your website and what they can do when they get there.
Okay, so
full screen. Yeah,
truthproof.uk, where you can obtain the paperback books, the hard copy of the DVD, or you can also get those on eBay, or likewise, you can download the books via Amazon. The DVD, Wolflands, myself and Les produce Wolflands, that's available via Amazon as well, on Amazon Prime. And the stratification tool, which we're going to rename, perhaps, with the help of people in the chat. Yeah, that's on the truthproof.uk website as well. And we just urge everybody to have a go at it. And like Martin said, if you only want to fill 10 of the questions in, it's data. So, you know, please consider having a go at it. And not only have a go at that, if you're sat here on your laptop now and you're not watching it through TV and you can see the like button, give it a press and subscribe if you haven't done. Totally free. And we're giving you our time, 2 hours, and it's not a lot to just give that a little ding. So thank you.
Stephen Collin, I wonder if we can come back as cryptids, etc. Completely different. Yeah.
Yeah,
that would explain a lot if we could. Yeah, that would explain a lot to me in any event. And
it's probably most taboo subject out there, that one, as regards the unexplained, Stephen. And a lot of people still can't get their heads around them. But I'm on the page where all these brilliant witnesses have come forward. They've seen and experienced something. So if it doesn't fit in your mindset because you just can't get your head around it, don't dismiss it. It's real.
I'm going to put this on the screen now. This one, Jan and Andrew. Thanks for the question, Jan. Andrew. The double slit experiment seems to prove we can alter reality at an atomic level, i.e., when we observe atoms, they act like particles. When we don't observe, they act like waves. What do you guys think?
I think I've just got to hand that one to Martin. I'm not going to think.
Yeah, the answer is absolutely, you're correct, Jan and Andrew. And in fact, even if you don't look at it, they did a bit of research with psychics, and the psychics,
they affect it.
Yeah, just right. Thinking about it. So your conscious mind, not just your visual receptors, but your conscious mind, this quantum mind, can affect other things like the electrons or the photons at the double slit experiment. So absolutely, your conscious mind can affect the world around it. Absolutely.
And that's scientific fact.
The research that was done, again, it's not standard research, so no one's going to say it's fact because the psychics were good enough to do it. But yeah, there's some research. You can find the research. It's on, it's available, where psychics did the same double slit experiment, but instead of looking at it, they thought about it, which is interesting.
And that affected it.
Yeah, same response. Yeah.
Okay, not so much a question, this one, but David Drummond is saying, don't watch Red Sky last week. Sound plays tricks. Sound plays tricks. Okay.
Thank you.
And let's have a look then. Andy H. Andy has been on a stream. Is it for experiences such as in Benton and the surrounding areas, Martin? I have some stuff from Dartmoor that could go on, and we had Andy on the stream.
Some incredible things that Andy shared.
Andy was brilliant. What a great guest Andy was. Thanks for the stream on that one, Andy, as well. It was brilliant. I loved listening to you. Yeah, I mean, this is a world phenomenon. I mean, anyone can experience different things, and it'll present in different ways. And for the tool, I'll just keep on touting it for everybody. Just put some stuff in, and we can get some data together about it. Otherwise, we're all just individuals in silo, assuming stuff and saying we think we know, and we don't know because we haven't got any literature to support it or say it. This is one way that we can all gain knowledge and be part of. So,
and Les touched on it, didn't he? This stratification tool, we want it throwing out. Cast the net far and wide. Forget about East and North Yorkshire. Everybody all over the world. If you're watching this now, go to truthproof.uk, download the document or use the email that Martin's provided, and he will send it you and fill it in. And if you want to fill 10 of the questions in, fill 10 in. If you want to fill all, what is it, 42?
It's about 39, 40, something like that.
Yeah, fill them all in. Yeah,
you don't have to if you don't want to. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's have a look, see if I can get a last question in probably for tonight. Right then, Studio 11 Productions. Do you think that the nocturnal has a big influence on the phenomena? Have people reported experiences from daylight instances?
Yeah, daylight instances absolutely come up. So it's not unique to the night. Although the night you're going to see more light phenomenon, you're going to see more. Because it's dark and our eyes are accustomed to finding light in the dark, aren't we? Certainly our senses are going to be more attuned to weird things that go on at night. We're going to be more alert.
And if it heightens our senses, heightens the vibration, then you might be tuning into it more.
And when you're walking around in the day, you're not normally looking up. You're normally looking down at the ground or looking out for people bumping into you. But whereas if you're walking around at night and you sit and there's a light in the sky, you think, oh, what's that? It's not the moon, you know. So yeah, it's not unique to nighttime. The reports from the tool, we're getting day stuff as well, and in people's houses. At night, it's usually unusual stuff going on in the bedroom, but you know, unusual phenomenon stuff. Not anything else. But the stuff in the day that isn't just in people's houses. It's that kind of shadow figure running into a wall, and half a person running through a wall, a weird shadow human. It's weird. It was really interesting stuff, and thank you for everyone who sent stuff in. It's been really intriguing to hear the stories and listen to the stories, and a bit unnerving as some of them as well. But send more. It's incredible. We're getting some data. It's good data.
Thank you.
A few weeks ago, I think I spoke about this before, but I sent one of my friends asked me to put a CCTV camera in his house. He's got a house of multiple occupancy. It happened to be a house that I lived in. It was a flat. I had the top floor flat at the time, and it was haunted. So when he bought the property, and I said, "Have you had anything weird happening here?" He was like, "No, not really." Anyway, we put this CCTV camera, so just making sure that it was safe. It could see the door. There was a few things going on, but I just wanted to. And anyway, I rung him up, and I says, "Graham, I don't know if you've noticed on your CCTV camera, because I had the on my arm. He'd been on holiday, and he just said to me, he goes, why are you seeing them ghosty things that I'm seeing?" And I've actually sent the footage to Paul.
Sent footage,
there's a shadow going up the stairs. And I told my ex-wife about this. So I had the flat with my ex-wife. And one day she was a hairdresser. She came up the stairs. There was a big mirror on the wall. And she got met with a lady in a white, like almost, she said, like a Victorian dress. Going up the staircase just like that shadow did, and it's twice in it, Paul. It does it on it. And then we get all these orbs coming down.
And there's also a power fluctuation. The lighting drops and comes back as well.
Drops, and there's one of these like static flicks.
It's interesting. Wow. And I think Mark's closed us down. Have you, Mark?
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's been great. Lenny, thanks for coming on last minute, my friend. Mark, thank you. Martin, thank you very much. Les, thank you. And that's the last word from me.
Got to thank I think it's Karen for the super chat tonight. Thank you very much, Karen, as always. Much appreciated. Thanks for everybody for going onto the stream. Absolutely amazing support as always. Great. And just one thing, Mark, I think somebody commented on the clarity of your audio tonight. I don't know if you
I did that. Yeah, what I need to do is get a better mic, and I just sat my headphones on the side. Sorry.
But it doesn't matter now. We've finished the show, and we're going to see you all on Sunday.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.